All right, M3 enthusiasts. Just a quick review in reference to the RTD shifter. A couple of things is that when you receive the shifter, man, you're just gonna see it's just like solid. It's just this one solid piece, you know. And I try to move it around and you know, just go on one side and the other, and it's kind of pretty tight, you know. There's two versions. One is the short shifter, which is 50 millimeters taller than a stock M3 shifter. So if you're thinking that you're going to get a short shifter, you're not, because it's actually going to be 50 millimeters taller, but it still throws those short throws. I went with the race one. For my M3, you know, turbo. So I want something different. You know, it came with 3 bolts, 3 locking nuts, so that way later on I can mount on there on the transmission and then just you know, and hook it up. Also went with the UUC dual shear selector rod. Everyone knows about that rod. It's really good. You know, they use it with the Evo 3 short shifter. You know, it came with a bag of goodies. Then I also purchased the gear shift rod joint. You know, on the gear shift rod joint, you'll notice that the older versions, you know what I'm saying, they don't have, I think it's like from 04 and below, they don't have this washer that's part of the gear shift rod joint. You know, this washer right here. But on the newer versions, I think 04, 05, and 06, they came with them. I don't know, something like that, you know. But one thing you'll notice is I've changed these before plenty of times, is that inside here, they call this a washer, but it's actually, you know, it's kind of spongy, you know. And with time, that gets all like dirty and it just gets used so much that, you know, once you're on the transmission, and you'll see that it's just going to move really freely. But once you place a new one on there, it's going to be nice and tight, you know, and not as freely as, like, you know, it's been used like for thousands or hundreds of miles. Okay. So once you place on the DSSR, you're going to see that it's going to be pretty tight, but you got to let UUC know what year you have, because I think if you got like a 01, 02, 03, you know, they're going to sell you the one that is a little bit shorter so they can fit the one that you have that doesn't have the washers, you know, and they'll send you the right one. As you can see, that's a really tight fit right there. You know, it's really tight. So it's good stuff. Next thing is, you know, I was supercharged for many years, and I've always used the 75 140 and the MT90. UUC highly recommends this oil for the shatter. You know, I have the UUC dual clutch with aluminum flywheel. You know, it's a great clutch, no issues. You know, drives like stock. You know, feels good, but it handles over 800 foot-pounds of torque, over 1,000 rear wheel horsepower. So I never had an issue with that clutch or that combination. You know, with the 75 140, UUC usually recommends. They usually recommend the automatic transmission D4 from Redline. That's what they recommend, but that's like more for like if you live in areas lower temperatures. I say like from Missouri, you know, up there in New York, that's a good one to use. The 75 140 and the automatic transmission fluid. But for hotter temperatures, they recommend the MT90. You know, is basically the mix is 75 140 and MT90. It's just a lubricant, you know. It's basically used as a GL4 oil, and it's used on manual transmission and transactions. So basically what that does with this combination, you know, it allows easier shifting. So, you know, and less chatter. I haven't had any chatter, any issues with it for plenty of years. I've raced before on my supercharger plenty of times, you know, for years, no issues, I'm telling you. So that's my mix. If you like another mix, if you like to use stock, if you like to use Multool, whatever you use, hey, but this is what I like to use. If you have chatter problems, do this. You'll see it. You won't regret it. So I'm gonna show you about the gear shift. I'm gonna show you something about the gear shift rod. So on the gear shift rod underneath here, and later on you'll see it, it has that bushing in the back that kind of clips up. That bushing right there, what I did, I placed some silicone in the front and I placed some silicone in the back while it was out. I let it dry it up, and then I put the gear shift rod in. You know what I'm saying? It just kind of helps for a good, you know, tight movement. However, my joint up front is wore, so you can see, and I got the the stock selector rod. So, you know, it's just kind of like that C shape, you know, and it's okay. It did its purpose, you know, but now that, you know, I'm higher horsepower, I'm just going to bigger and better things. So I'm gonna start disassembling, and once I'm done, I'll show you all the parts, and then I'll start assembling. That way everyone can get a feel of the new RTD shifter. Alright guys, just want to give you a quick update here. So got the Rogue Engineering shifter. You know, you see the gear shift rod, you know, the selector rod here also. It's all Rogue Engineering. So I noticed that you know, that front play that we had at the beginning of this video, you know what I'm saying, with my shifter going side to side. Well, with time, even these name brand shifters, if you can see, here's one thing, you know what I'm saying, it's just a little slight movement. And then the taller the shifter is, as the taller it gets, then, you know, the more movement there is. I also noticed there's a lot of movement also inside right here in the gear shift rod, that plastic piece right there, you know. And then I started looking at the gear shifter itself inside here, and this is a Rogue Engineering, which, you know, pretty good brand name short shifter. But then, you know, I guess with time it starts moving, you know, and then that transfers to that whole movement, you know what I'm saying, when I had it in gear earlier, and it just moved left and right. So here it is, Rogue Engineering. Oh, so the bushing we spoke about earlier. So if you look at your bushing on your M3, you're gonna notice that, you know, when you take yours, it just moves around while you even have it in the gear shift rod here. It moves around. So what I did, I just filled it up with silicone in here, and fill it up with silicone in there and in there, just to kind of help it stiffen it out, to stiff that rod out. So, you know, and it does help. So the other thing on the boot, you have to cut it. You got to make a cut, because the boot, once you put it on the transmission piece, right, and then the new RTD shifter goes down through here, and it's just gonna come out through the opposite side. But then for the bolts, since it has, I think it was what, 2 up front and 1 in the back, well, then the rubber piece is just gonna be right there in the middle. So I just cut it out, so that way later on I can screw the bolts on, and then you can still use your rubber piece. That way all that heat won't transfer up there. And then I think later on I'm just gonna put some heat reflector or something like that from underneath, but I'll work on that as I keep working on it. So just so that way you can see, and I'll keep continuing, and I'm gonna just cut and paste, and I'll get all these videos together. Hey guys, it's a great fit with the selector rod, no issues. But however, if you use the dual selector rod, the DSSR, there's gonna be a gap. All right, so mine's is connected already underneath, and I'll show you here in a minute. So you're gonna have to try to find a washer, you know, just try to find a different washer that you can kind of tightly snug in between there, and then that way later on you can put the pin, you know, saying that comes with that UC DSSR. So these are for them guys that are using other selector rods. But if you use the stock one, which this is the same size as the stock one, you'll see that it'll just go right through, and then you just pin it. All right, I'm underneath the car, so on my selector rod, and even if you have the stock one, make sure that you put it at the joint first up there. Put it at the joint up front, and then later on, as you bring your shifter inside here through the RTD one, then you have plenty of amount of room to play over here and put it together. So just make sure you put the front one up first. So after I replace my joint rod, my joint up front, you can see it's nice and it just feels new, you know, no movement left or right. And then I'm gonna start putting in my shifter. All right, here it goes. Here's the DSSR. It's all connected up. Oh, shoot. It's really nice and tight and smooth. You see them holes up there? That's because I was SMG and I changed over to 6-speed. You can see what I'm talking about, the rubber, how you just need to cut it. You know, I positioned it like that. That way it'll be a lot easier for the shifter on the bottom. All right, it's all installed. As you can see, the 3 bolts installed, easy. Got the boot on there. That way the heat won't come up. Later on underneath, I'll put some heat reflector from underneath there just to kind of cover any heat coming up. As you can see, the shifter's nice and stiff. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hey, I'm telling you something. I've been driven. I'm a 40-year-old man, and I've been driving since I was like what, 12, 13, and I've never seen or felt a shifter like this, man. This is like badass. Later on, as my Turbo M3, I know I'm gonna do a dog box, so this will be a good, nice shifter to just keep it, you know. My ethanol gauge, nice and concealed, you know, for my flex fuel, for my Infinity. All right, I'm gonna start putting everything back together so we can look at the nice piece. For you guys, I want to keep that inner trim piece, that spongy portion. Hey, what you got to do? You just got to cut it approximately, what's that, like 2 inches, so that way it can fit nice and tight and snug back, like if it was stock in there. You just gotta kind of fit it in there. All right, so something like that. But as I'm recording with one hand, you know, as you can see, it was an easy fit, something simple. All right, so make sure you just cut like approximately like two inches from it. For you guys that have the leather shifter boot that is a complete portion like this, just sharply cut a nice clean cut with a razor blade right there, because as this is the piece that we're going to be placing back on the shifter. All right, to place the leather piece back in, you need to take out that long screw from on top of the shifter. It's right here with an Allen wrench, and then also you got to use a smaller one. You got to use a smaller one in order to take out the ring portion that goes right on here. All right, so I'll keep installing it here piece by piece. All right, take the leather piece, put it inside out like this. Place a zip tie, as you know, kind of close to the edge, but not that close. And then tighten it up really tight. You know, use some pliers or something like that. And then as I turn it back upside down, it's gonna sit really nice on there. Boom, son. Here it is, complete product. Goes right back to the center. Nicely done.